name is Mary Louise Helbig. I'm the Executive Director of ITEN. Thank you for joining us on Valentine's evening. We love that you're here with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate that you're here with us. So we're very excited about this discussion this evening. As many of you know, we're a nonprofit that works with tech startups. We've been around for 10 years and have supported over 900 tech startups in the St. Louis region. And one of the questions that is a very common question and or need, sometimes people don't know what they need, is around sales and the sales process. So tonight we thought we would talk about that directly, around how to make and have impactful sales, and focus on two critical components of that, which is two processes. One is, what is the sales process within a business, within your business perhaps, and what is the customer's buying process? And we're going to talk through the different steps that each organization goes through, because it's important to understand those, first of all, those steps, but also important to identify and understand them so that you can manage them and make sure that your sales process and the customer's buying process meet up at the right stages when it's appropriate for them to connect and connect in the right ways, so that ultimately you can get sales. And that's really what it's all about, right? Yes, sir?
There's a microphone over there, a little hard to hear.
Oh, okay.
You've never been accused of that?
I've never been accused of that.
I'm like, that's fine.
I'm from a big family. Talking loud was a means to survival. You had to make sure people knew you were there. Is this on?
Good job.
Might have dead batteries. Because it's on.
All right, we'll talk about it.
Use your outside
We'll
voice.
talk loud. I'll use my outside voice. Is that better? Okay.
Or there are seats in the front row, my friend.
Yeah, we want to come
Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so tonight I have with me two wonderful people who are both ITEN mentors, and they are very accomplished business people. Kristie Jones, she founded the Sales Acceleration Group in 2016 to help SaaS startups build, grow, and scale their sales and customer success teams to increase revenue, specializing in sales process training, coaching, tech stack hiring, interviewing, compensation, and goal setting. She's consulted for several SaaS companies in the Midwest, including some of our very own local startups, Jane AI, Top Ops, Agilus Systems, PowerPost, Lean Media, Advocado, SalesView, Observable Networks, Clarent, and has 18 plus years managing SaaS inside sales teams, SDR teams, and customer success teams. Kristie spends a lot of time with our startups, giving them fabulous guidance about their sales process and strategy. Keith Grosz has been mentoring with ITEN. How long have you been mentoring with ITEN?
Too long.
Too long. Jim says too long. I didn't say that. I did not say that. But Keith is a serial entrepreneur. He is passionate about taking an idea and making it into reality. He knows what it takes to put together the right team, and most importantly, how to execute for results. Keith focuses, and what he really enjoys is the challenge of opening and starting new business relationships, then developing those relationships into sales. That's what matters, show me the money, right? As well as understanding who the end user is and how to engage them, how to price the product, and present it to the customer. Most importantly, to know when to reinvent the products or service to come up with something that scales. He enjoys being a mentor for ITEN startups, as well as sits on the board of nonprofits and volunteers for a number of charities. So, with that, we will get started. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of have these guys tag team. They're both experts on either topic, but we said just for this conversation, because we're talking about the sales process, and then, which is for the business that's selling, and then the customer's buying process. So they're gonna each kind of take that role and talk through the kind of what some of the key steps are. And then we're gonna talk about how do you kind of marry those processes, and then what are the key things that you need to know about your business in order to deliver effectively on sales. Did I miss anything?
No, I mean, let's make this interactive, right? So
Yeah.
if you got a question, don't need to hold it till the end. If it's burning, let's put the fire out. You know, we'll jump in at any point in time when you want to stop.
One thing I want to say before we get started is that we work with tech companies, and a lot of entrepreneurs that we work with are really fabulous technologists, or they've created something and they're very passionate about it and in love with what they've created, which is a very good thing. But sales is a skill, and there's technical parts of the sales process of selling, and there is process steps to sales. So it's not magic and art. But sometimes I think about like it being very much like singing. Some people are just gifted. I mean, they have this beautiful voice and can just sing, and that's a wonderful thing. But they still train, and there's still skill and technique to that. And so sales is really the same way. So sales isn't all just like, if I build it, they will come, and if I'm passionate about it, they'll buy it. No, so that's really what we're here to talk about today, is some of the more specific aspects of selling and what will contribute to successful sales. You guys have anything else? Okay. All right, so with that, we're going to start off, and Kristie's going to play our sales process role person, and she's going to talk us through a couple things here.
Yeah, so when I speak with early stage tech startups, and this is my swim lane, this is all I do for a living, is deal with mostly funded or early stage companies. The first thing I do, I can come in and help you put the sales process together, but if you haven't done some of these steps, then we're not, we're getting ahead of ourselves, right? So, do you understand your ICP, or ideal customer profile? So that could be anything from a region, to a vertical, to I'm only going to target companies that do 20 million or more in revenue. I'm only going to target companies that have 500 or more employees. So demographically, who are you going after? Do you understand that? And a lot of your products or your services or your software may be viable for a large part of the world. Would encourage you to boil that down to where do you think you want to start from a target market perspective. So just because you can sell to whomever doesn't mean you should sell to whomever. One of the things I find is the biggest challenges as we kind of get down the process with sales reps is every time they have to switch gears, so they have to switch industries, they have to switch size of company, they have to switch a regional situation, that makes them less focused. So I just was working with a current client of mine, and we were putting together business plans for 2019, and I said, you can, so you want to target, like one of their targets is utilities, and I said, great, there are a lot of utility companies, and you can't tackle all of those in 2019. So who do you want to tackle? What will be your 50 target accounts that go into that? So do you understand, and not just understand, but do you have in writing? So as you scale, I'm assuming that everyone's going to be successful and everyone's going to scale, you're going to share that with the marketing department. So a lot of my tech startups don't have a marketing department yet, they just have a sales department. But you're going to want to share your findings, if you will, or your successes based on ideal customer profile with marketing, because then eventually you'll want marketing to warm those folks up before you get to them. So understanding that is important. I'm going to use the word personas. This is a new trendy word in the SaaS startup world. So within the company, so again, let's use utilities as the example. What are the titles of the individuals that would buy your product? So COO, Director of Operations, Director of IT, CTO. So do you understand the people? And then do you understand a day in the life of those people? So what is their job description? Where do they spend most of their time? What's keeping them up at night? How do they get promoted? How are they being reviewed? So I literally put together, a different client I'm working for is selling into the cybersecurity industry. So I put together a persona Sally, CSO, and IT Ivan. And I literally did that. Like, what does Ivan's daily day look like? Who does Ivan report to? How is Ivan gonna stop being the director of IT and become the CTO? What are the pain points, like what are the risks that Ivan, faces as the director of IT on a daily basis? So do you understand within the companies that you've picked on your ideal customer profile, who those people are that you should be selling to? And then how are we gonna go to market, right? Are we gonna drive inbound leads? Are you gonna put together a digital marketing strategy? Do you have social media campaigns? Are you gonna hire a sales development rep to set appointments for you, i.e. an outbound campaign? So are you gonna spend all of your marketing dollars driving people to you, or are you gonna go get those people? So do you have a content marketing strategy? One of the things that you guys can do right now that you can put on your website is a blog. So you guys are subject matter experts on your industry, you understand the pain points of those that you're selling to, so write some white papers, put an infographic together, put an ebook together, create a little video. So things that will go out into the web, that you can put onto the web, you can put on social media, so you can hire these folks, right? But I say to people, I'm like, yes, they're content, I can definitely recommend content writers for you, but you have enough knowledge that you should be able to put a 1.5 page, blog post together. And so if your website doesn't have a blog, I would encourage you to put that together. Those are some easy, cheap go-to-marketing strategies, right? I mean, we can talk more extensively, but the question is, are you gonna push people to you, or are you gonna pull them to you? So are you gonna put stuff out into the universe that causes them to raise their hand and say, yeah, that sounds interesting to me? Or are you gonna do cold outreach through email and phone and video and social media and call into the chief technology officer or into a utility to try to get their attention? So some sort of marketing strategy. So that kind of gets into the next thing. So I encourage my clients to create both. So there are certain people that are knowledge people, right, that are going to be out there into the universe looking for white papers to download or thought leadership. But there are other people that might not do that, and so you may have to have both an inbound and outbound strategy. So before you even find a prospect, right, you need to have some of these things solidified before you get to the next step.
Okay. Keith, did you want to add anything? We're going to go
Or
into
you
the
just
sales
touch it?
process.
Yeah. Oh, it's sales.
Yeah, we're going to do one more on sales.
Oh, okay.
She wanted to do a pre-sale setup, and then we're going to hop into so now we're going to talk about the actual sales process. So this is what the steps that you would go through in order to get that lead into actually getting a sale.
So whether they come to you and raise their hand because you put some thought leadership, a white paper or a blog post out into the universe, and that caused them to reach out to you in some way, or whether you outbound prospected them and and you engage with them in that way, we must do a discovery call. So bad news is that not everybody that reaches out to you or that you reach out to is going to be a fit for you. So sometimes they think they're a fit, and that goes back to ideal customer profile, right? If they have a problem that you can't solve, then they're not a good fit for you. And so you need to be going through a discovery call process, and again, list of questions, right? I call them housekeeping and strategic. So if you know that your product doesn't do well with companies with fewer than 500 employees, and the person that you're talking to has 150 employees, then that's not a fit for you. Okay, so you won't know that necessarily until you get to a discovery call stage. So making sure that you have a list of discovery questions, and again, obviously we're going to get from everything like to the housekeeping of how many employees do you have to, hey, what's timeline for solving this problem? Do you have and I ask budget question in a little softer way, I say, is this a budgeted initiative? So, i.e., have you set aside money for that? The answer could be no, it's not a budgeted initiative, and I go, great. How do things that are non-budgeted in your company normally get done? So what is the process? If it's not on a P&L, it's not already on a P&L line, right? If it's not already budgeted, that's fine. People find money for things that solve problems, don't you worry about that. But it may be a different process than something that's already been allocated and budgeted for something, right? So after the discovery call, I call it go or no go. So I don't let my reps that I work with put anything into the pipeline. So I'm talking about your CRM system, right? I don't let them put anything in the pipeline until they've had a discovery call. And coming out of that, I say to them, are we go or no go? Does it fit the ideal customer profile and the pain points that they have and things that our product or service solves, or not? And it's okay if it's not, because the last thing you want to do, putting the wrong fit into the pipeline, no bueno. So if you need 500 employees and you got 150, then that's a no-go for now. Yes, sir?
So is the discovery call more a function of the marketing?
No, it's more a function of qualification. So it's really all about them. So I've got several phraseologies, so we'll start to throw some on the table here. It's all about them before it can be all about you, before it can be all about us. So we're going to do a lot of questioning. This is an interview, basically, right? To see if we know who we're looking for. They know they have a problem, but they don't know who the right vendor to solve it might be. And so it's not marketing. It really is it's the start of the sales process from a qualification standpoint. So that's why I say at the end of that discovery call, I'm going to go or no go. And so sometimes no go, I call it NRN, not right now. So it doesn't mean that, it means they could have a problem that we can solve, but we know from a margin standpoint that that's not a good idea for us. Like, we can't make margin off a 150-person company. We need it to be 500 to make money, for it to be profitable. So you say to them, hey, listen, you have a problem, we can solve it, but we don't have a solution that fits your current size and situation. So call me when you're 450.
So the reason I ask is it seems as though the marketing part, like calling out the right customer, seems as though it would take care of that without wasting the manpower once they go into the funnel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so to put a different twist on it, whether you have a product in technology or a service, I personally do the qualification prior to the call. So I don't spend time on the call qualifying the client. I know who I think my target market is, and I let the marketing department, or in most cases, the startup is that you are the marketing, you're the sales, you're the business development, right? You're the person who cleans the bathroom, you're the person who sends letters. So you can say we, but it's really you. And so what happens is you know your target market, you do the research prior, so you don't take their time or your time calling someone just to, and that's just my opinion.
Right.
So I like your style because you're right. That typically should be done before.
I have a question. What are your thoughts about at least recording that information? So, you know, if you have like 100 people asking you for the same thing, you may think, well, hey, maybe we need to make a product for this that, you know, no one's, like, why are they coming to you instead of someone else?
Great question. And that's why nothing ever ends up the way it starts out.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Particularly, yeah, and startups.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't continue to reinvent yourself, you'll go away. So reinventing yourself is taking those 100 questions or feedback and figuring out, wow,
Yes.
I have something that's useless. I need to go down this road.
Yeah, to
Yep.
Kristie's point, is like, that information should be captured in your CRM somehow, you know, whatever your kind of critical, you know, check marks are for go, and then your no-goes, you should be collecting why it wasn't right, you know, whatever that criteria.
Which is why I do think you should have a call. So I wouldn't disqualify them before
Right.
talking.
Oh, that's
I
exactly
got
what
5
I
minutes for everybody, right? I'm like, I got 5 minutes for everybody. I'm not that busy. So for that purpose alone, for product
Yeah, it's just
development
different
roadmap,
stuff.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
different stuff.
Yeah, I like having that personal conversation so that I can help figure that out, or at least engage them and say, hey, listen, here's why I don't think you're a fit. But they may say, oh, well, I'm just getting ready to close an acquisition. Then I'm gonna have 500 employees.
Yeah.
Can't find that out from a form fill.
Well, the only other thing I would bring up too is it's a lot easier to get information when they're calling you versus you trying to call them, right?
Yes, it is.
They're actually interested in talking to you
Yeah.
versus they have all their barriers and, you know, obviously
Just
where they're
starting out, it's very difficult to get someone to call you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they don't know you exist.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Going down the sales funnel, so again, just out of curiosity, how many people in the room actually have a CRM system? Okay. Are the rest of you using like Excel or some sort of other type of database? Okay. So when I want to make sure that I'm not talking about something that you guys don't understand. So in a CRM system or in some sort of software, when you put something in the pipeline or in the funnel, then basically there are different stages. So it's how you know, like, in every stage has a probability attached to it, right? So again, the discovery call for me is 0, right? So it's a 0 probability. I don't know anything, I haven't talked to them yet. When I get to determine fit, and I put them in a pipeline because fit has been determined, then I put them in at a 10% probability. Still only 1 in 10 chance that they're gonna close at this point. So as I start to move down this list, by the way, the probability increases, right? So you can, again, obviously you get to contract, I'm at a 90% probability. So if you're not using a CRM system, make sure that you're sort of keeping track of you know, what percentage do I think chances are based on my different stages? And I always say to people, you need to understand, how am I gonna get from stage 1 to stage 2? So when I say fit has been determined, I mean that I can help them, but I also mean that they're committed to the process. So I always say that means that I have another firm follow-up call and they have agreed to basically engage in the sales process with me because they want to do more discovery and more, they want to learn more as well from the buyer side. So chances are I'm going to engage more, you're going to engage more stakeholders. If you have software, you're probably going to, the next step would probably be a demo. So who else should be involved? So normally one, again, like I call it send a scout, right? Somebody reaches out to you or you call somebody and they're like, well, like you can talk to me, but which means I'm not the right person, by the way. So when you're like, so I understand that you're the person that makes decisions about, well, you can talk to me. That's not names that are not the right person. So you know that there's somebody else there. So you go ahead and
That'd be a gatekeeper.
that'd be a gatekeeper, or maybe an influencer, or maybe a stakeholder or an end user or whatever. But you can, again, you can get information from anybody if you want to. So take whatever you can get from whomever is willing to talk to you, and then let's move up the food chain, so to speak. But once you get to this point, you're like, hey, you probably know that they're not, I call it, they don't own a checkbook. So if you know they don't own a checkbook, who owns the checkbook, right? And so let's figure out who owns the checkbook. They should probably come to the next meeting. So let's involve more people. Again, if it's software, does IT need to be involved? If it's a product, does, you know, who might be using the product? Again, you guys know your market. Who else should come to the table at that point? And then we're sort of doing, we're sort of doing a little bit of new discovery, right? So in that meeting, I'm going to say to them, hey, so this is what I learned from talking to Susan. And, what else would you like to add to the information that I have? Because everybody's going to have, remember, everybody's got their own agenda. Everybody has their own promotion track they're trying to accomplish. Everybody's looking out for me. So that means they have their own problems and their own things you want to learn about. At the end of that, we should agree on the business case. So in a lot of situations, with a lot of my clients, it can be used for this, or this, or this. And sometimes there's up to 3 things that a product or service could be a solution of a pain point for. So does everybody agree at the end of that call that this is the use case for that, or this is the business case for that? I.e., we can get ROI, we can get some sort of return on investment. So understanding that people buy for 2 reasons. Makes them more money, saves them money. Well, that's it, right? So do you understand if it makes them money or saves them money? And then if it makes them money, how much more money could they make with your product or service? If it saves them money, how much money are you saving with their product or service? Because you can't cost more than you're saving them. And you can't cost more than you would make them. Because there's no ROI there. Okay? Then they're probably going to ask you for something in writing, right? So form a proposal, and again, this could be a one-sheeter, this could be an email. I say to a lot of my reps, why don't you just put everything we talked about in writing in an email? Okay? You don't need to go put some formal PowerPoint or whatever, or document or Panda doc together or anything at that point. They just need something that perhaps they need to take to somebody else. So they may need to go to finance, they may need to go to procurement. They just need something formally in writing that so that you don't bait and switch them later on price or terms. And then once we get past that stage, this is where negotiation is going to happen, by the way. So the minute you send out something and put it on paper, this is where negotiation is going to start happening. So I don't like the terms, I don't like the length of the contract, I don't like the price. This is where you're going to start getting price and term objections are going to happen. And then we're going to put together so once we get that worked out, we're going to put together the contract. So that's will be your T's and C's. And I always say, like, your addendum is what you're really delivering. So all of the legal spiegel stuff that your lawyer put together for you, and then Appendix A or Addendum A is going to be what you're really buying. And then of course we have to deliver, right? So after that, I call that post-sale. So everything's happened, everybody's signed the contract, we have a go live, then you have to deliver your product or service, and so implementation has to happen in order for that sales process to be finalized and closed out for sure.
Any questions on the sales process before we move on, Keith?
And this may be more, certainly not maybe a SaaS kind of thing, but at my old company, we had a go, no-go of if they were going to do the project or looking. And then we had a percent there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a percent that they were going to choose us once they decided.
Yes, so
So there are 2 parts of the 2
Yeah, so
percentages.
in SaaS, a lot of times what happens in probably stage 2 or 3, build it or buy it, right? So internally, the IT guys, the developers are like, oh, we can do that.
Yeah.
But they're like, okay, but again, you guys already have 3 other projects on your plate, you know, so there's always a cost associated with build it. So again, when you get somebody on the phone, they're like, oh, like, that sounds great, I bet my developers can put that together. Super. When, how much, I mean, their time, like, you're paying them, right? So there, you have to do the same cost analysis for build it as you do for buy it.
Versus buy, yeah.
So a lot of times she's right, a lot of times somewhere in there, so that's again, that gets to the agreement on business case, and that's where objections start to happen. So objection could be, well, I probably need to go to the IT team and see if they could whip me up a little something,
Yeah.
right? Whip me up a little, so whip me up a little something, by the way, never ever ends on time. When's the last time you had a contractor at your house? Same concept, right? Swore that my master bath was gonna be done at the end of January, still can't shower, okay? Still going to the basement to take a shower, not okay. Happens, same thing with build it, right?
Yeah.
So we already have a ready product. So when you say go and you sign the contract, we just flip the switch, implementation may take a week or whatever, but we're ready to rock, right? And this is, in PS, this is what we do for a living. This is all we do. Your developers do a lot of things. So are they gonna think about all of the things that we've already thought about and features and benefits that we put into the product?
And I think what's important here is these are the kind of the high level steps, and depending upon what your product or service is and what industry you're working in, these steps can maybe be very fast or insignificant, or they could have steps within them. So again, this is about understanding that these are the high level steps, and just make sure you know that what they are and what the industry and
What they
marketplace
are for
that
you.
you're working in, what goes on there, because from one industry segment to the other, based on the product or service you're selling, the distinctions between those, these can either be very expanded or very even contracted.
When I put these together, when I attach probabilities to these, when I do this drill with my clients, I also put timeframes on them. Because I wanna know what we consider a stalled opportunity, right? So if coming out of the demo, we need to agree on a business case and that should take 2 weeks and it's 2 months later, I'm gonna call that a stalled opportunity. So are we gonna, you know, do a full court press to try to shake that loose? And at what point, I call it, at what point you have to decide what your walkaway is. So at each stage, what's your walkaway point, right? You've done X, X, and X. At some point you have to say, this is a lost opportunity for now. So that doesn't mean you're not gonna continue to contact them quarterly or monthly or whatever, but you have to have a walkaway point, otherwise you just have fluff in your pipeline and it's all bogus and it means nothing.
And also on the CRM comment, this is why it is very important to have a CRM. If you don't have one that I would recommend is Less Annoying CRM, and they're actually a startup, relatively young company, a little beyond startup. They have a fantastic CRM tool that is very affordable and provides all the functionality you need. But the reason you want that is because you start, as Kristie said, you start tracking these stages and you begin to figure out, and if you're running a business, and then in time, you'll be hiring other salespeople, then you can look, this is why this pipeline reporting is so important. You can begin to look at the pipeline and you will
See
know
trends.
and begin to see things. And sometimes the markets change too, and you need to know that. So that's why both the CRM tool is really important to have, because it starts to just track all of this for you automatically.
If you want more information about how to successfully implement a CRM, you can go to the ITEN YouTube channel and look at our video from our second Thursday event that delved into that, so.
Great, thank you. All right, now we're gonna,
Question.
oh, question.
Yeah, have you run into much in your experience where you can identify, you know who the buyer is, but you really don't know who the decision maker is?
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. We were making custom-made parts for aircraft. And of course, the buyer tries to get the lowest price, but the engineer actually made the decision as to what product. Have you run into much of that?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, and again, it's an ego thing, right? So it's, I'm actually the decision maker until it gets, again, so it is important to figure out very early on, if you can, who the check writer is. And so I just, again, I try to be real soft about it. So would you mind just going through with me what the process for purchasing looks like? Again, not in stage, as we get around the proposal stage, right? So you may have already had clues, right? A lot of times people will give you clues, they may accidentally say he or we or she or whatever. But if you feel like that's not the check writer, then I would just, as we get to proposal stage, I would say, hey, I'm happy to put a proposal together for you. Would you mind in return sharing with me your process for purchase? And it could be, again, like sometimes it's procurement, right, which is horrible, but what happens? Nobody likes the procurement people. But when you find out, so basically when you say at some point, so you'll be signing the contract, and people at that point have a relationship with you. To lie to you at that point seems a little disagreeable. So they're like, oh, no, probably not, but I just walk it down to Joe and Joe signs it. Well, who the heck's Joe? Where'd he come from, right? You're like automatically on LinkedIn going, Joe at this company who signs contracts, who? And so then again, I don't want to offend anybody, so then I say things like, super, can you tell me what kind of questions Joe normally has for you when you take a contract down the hall to him? What's he going to ask you? So now you're coaching, right? Like, you're not going to get in front of Joe. It's not going to happen. So you're now sending a scout. You're now sending your contact to sell Joe on this and ask him to write a check for you. So you need to know, what does Joe normally balk on? What kind of questions does Joe normally ask? When does Joe just say yes without blinking twice? So you got to make sure that your contact is prepared to have that conversation with Joe and can answer all of those questions that Joe may ask him.
All right, Keith is going to represent the customer.
Right, the buyer.
The buyer in this process and walk us through the steps that a buyer typically goes through.
Perfect. You're going to probably, ITEN is probably going to regret having me do this because I'm totally old school. I use a CRM in case the window opens and my yellow piece of paper fly away. So I have a computer. And I use Less Annoying because it's $10 a month. And it does everything I need. It does everything I need. But the time, I don't do the percentages, because by the time I figure that out, I'm making 3 more calls. So I'm all about calling for action. I'm all about results. So currently I'm involved with 2 companies. One's high tech in the IoT space, Internet of Things space, and the other is a company I'm starting called Expense Recovery Group that improves bottom lines for companies by reducing their overhead. And so 2 polar opposite companies, but as far as industries and as far as the business model, but yet the same, when you think of the buying process, the exact same. And I'll run through that. Both companies save clients money. The IoT company we attach, and it works. We attach an atom, we attach a sensor to an object like a motor, and it gives predictive maintenance. Saves the company money. The expense recovery group, we look at all the expenses and save money. So both companies have the same idea, save money. Both companies need approval from a C-level person or owner. One has an upfront fee. The high-tech company has an upfront fee plus an ongoing, fee. The other company, we work on if we don't save you money, we don't get paid. And it sounds simple, but that's really difficult to sell because it sounds too good to be true. So it's totally different models, but the same buyer. Both, let's see, no matter what the business is, the key to success and scale comes down to sales. I don't care how good your product is, I don't care how good your service is, if you can't sell it, it's worthless. So that's the one thing that frustrates me when I see startups who I mentor, they worry about everything else but sales. Anyway, I get passionate about it. I always put myself in the buyer's shoes. Whenever I'm starting a business, I always think of the buyer. I'm thinking of who my target market is and how they would purchase my product or service. Think about your own company starting out and the things you have to purchase, like business cards, CRMs, website design, different things that you're going to now be involved with buying. So how do you make those decisions? Who makes the final decision? You or someone else? Who sets the budget? And what is your budget? What's important to you? Service, timing of delivery, service of the purchase, service of the delivery of the product. do you want it made in the USA? Is that important to you? Do you want a capital expense? For example, a CRM costs $10 a month. Is it better to pay $120 all at one time so you can capitalize it? And who's going to educate you? How do you want to be educated on the sale? You know, buying it should be, you want it buy it through the internet, you want it in person, you know, how, so think about your own business, your own buying needs, and that's exactly what you have to think about when you have your product and who you're selling to. So, the first one, identify need or problem. If they don't have a need or a problem, you can't sell to them, right? So you could, I've seen this before, you might have a product that you think is a problem for them, or you might have a service that you think is a problem for them, but that's a very difficult sell. You know, if you think you can do that, that's a long way to get to the bank. The bigger way, the fastest way to get to the bank is find a company that has that need or problem. So when I'm a company, the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, so what's our need? You know, what's our problem? And then next, we got to search for a solution. So that's usually through networking of friends, business professionals like lawyers, accountants, associates, maybe your competition, you look at them, you look on the internet. So you got to think of, if I'm now looking for a solution, how would I look for that solution? I go to my friends and say, hey, I have this need. How do we fix that need? Or I look on the internet, I look at my competition, and then evaluate options. And this is key. So the options are, they do it internally or they outsource it. So if they're doing it internally, that's very difficult to convince them to buy your product or service. But if they're outsourcing it, that's the one you want.
Question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right there was something, because I've had a little bit of experience in sales, and you said there's two options, you know, like either they buy it or they don't. Well, there's
No, they either develop it internally or they don't.
or they don't, right. There's kind of a third thing that I always used to run into in sales, which is they put it off until later.
Not right now.
Yeah.
And we might have a solution for them. They've identified, they've admitted that they have this problem that your product or service can sell.
Right.
They like your price, they like this, they like everything, and no matter what, they still are not gonna buy.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jim. That's
That happens all the time.
Apathy is the number one reason why people don't buy. It's
all the
apathy.
time it happens. But
It's just, they can, their pain is not high enough to force them to make a decision.
right.
They're gonna put it off and just keep doing what they're doing. I mean, we all do this in our lives.
Right.
You know, I got it, the car door doesn't work on the passenger side, in the back seat. Okay, well, I'm gonna have people get in the other side,
Right.
or, you know, not put anybody back, you know, whatever.
Well, I
mean,
think
get
that's
6
a
months
really-
out of it before I have to pay the repair guy.
That's a really important and good point about targeting, and particularly with startups and for early adopters, and Kristie touched on this a little bit earlier, is identifying the people that have the greatest need or pain. So your back door on your passenger side doesn't work, and no one ever uses that door, so that only is a nuisance for you twice a year. Versus
It's actually
your
not a nuisance for him
family.
at all, because he's the driver.
Yeah, right. But, you know, versus you're a family of 5 and people are trying to get in and out of that door every day. So what we want to do when we're doing our identify need or problem is also identify the people with the greatest need or have the
Yeah.
biggest problem.
Lowest hanging fruit.
And you touched on this too, because those are the people that are going to be likely to act faster, sooner in the
So Jim,
purchase process.
I think that's a great point you brought up, but I'll bring a counter to that. As a salesperson and business development person, whenever I hear they're not ready, and I know they're ready, I know they need, I never give up, first of all.
Right.
They can give a hard no, and they're still gonna get a call in 6 months. You know, the soft no, they'll get a call every month. So I never give up. But I always beat myself up because I'm thinking, what did I give them? What information did I not give them? So I blame it on myself.
You haven't
I
provided that.
never blame it on the buyer. And that's just me
You're one
personally.
of those calls I get from someplace in Arizona, I don't think.
You do, Robo.
Yeah. You got a restraining order against Keith, right?
But if you want $100,000 in a month, call me.
All right.
No, that's a great point. But I'm just saying, as a startup or an early stage company, you just have to have that mentality that if you do hear a no, if you hear a no, you gotta keep going. But if we hear we have a need, we do have that problem, we believe your product could be good, but we're just not ready. And for me personally, I take that as a personal attack on me. I take that as I didn't give them the information that they need.
Being great value.
Yeah.
But there was a situation at work where I was trying to sell a cost savings, where we would buy raw materials in bulk to save the company millions of dollars, and to me it's like no-brainer, it's a quick payoff. But I was having trouble selling it. It was only when one of my coworkers said, hey, we can produce more if we had this system in, that it was just putting it in the wrong terms. If I put in terms of increasing production,
Right,
that would sell
Sales
it.
went up.
Right.
But
Right.
cost savings, I couldn't sell it, right?
right.
So that might be the other thing too, is are you putting it in a frame that they're interested
Yeah,
in?
you thought the pain point was
Well,
X and it was really Y.
The interesting thing is, my new business is all about cost savings, and I thought through that. So I can't go to you or your friend, I've got to go to the person who stays up at night thinking about the expenses. No offense, but I can't go to the person who goes home and not have that on their mind. I got to go to the person who has to, if you're publicly held, has to present to the board of directors. If you're privately owned, the one who's responsible for the bottom line. And that's a great point, and that's how I'm going to approach it. Okay, so make purchase decisions. We got, as a seller, as a buyer, I'm going to figure out who the person is that's the decision maker. Within my company, I'll know who I'm going to assign that to make that decision, and what resources do they need to make that decision. So on the other side, I now need to know who that decision maker is. Because if I'm going to the person who's providing the resources, that doesn't help me. I need to find that decision maker. Initiate purchase process. As a company, I'll either do an RFP, or chances are, if it's a big company or a military, you gotta go through the RFP process. But otherwise, probably what we're gonna do is find a company, get the word out that we're looking for this solution, and see what companies show up. As the seller, then I need to figure out what is their process. How do I get in that line of, how do I get in line with that process? Let's see, then 6, execute contract order. Yeah, so yes.
Have you run into much where they want a prototype, see a prototype before they'll make a decision on it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I volunteer that. I don't ever expect anybody to make a decision to buy especially if I'm first starting out or early stage. Now, if I'm an established, if I'm Boeing, then I don't need to do that. Maybe I do. But if I'm a startup or early stage company, absolutely, I volunteer that. Don't make that decision until you test my product.
We ran into that all the time.
Put the results of my against the sale. And if I can't do that, I have the wrong product or service. Execute contract. So it's important that when we're ready to, do the contract, we can deliver. So as a seller, as the buyer, when I'm executing a contract, I'm saying, okay, I need this delivery date, this price, whatever other terms you want to put into that decision. But as a seller, if you know that they need X amount of product at this time, you better have that lead time if your product is, has other parts to it. For example, our high-tech company, we have long lead times for building our product. So if we have a client that says, I need the product today, we may or may not have that, depending on the quantity. So that's part of what factors into executing a contract order. Implement and accept order. So this is an interesting one because this can really make or break you. I believe if you exceed expectations on this number 7, implement and accept product, if I'm the buyer and I have a vendor who's exceeding my expectations, no matter what happened before that, I'm forgiving them. But if I'm the buyer and they're not exceeding my expectations, whatever happened before that, I'm forgetting that. So whether it was good up until that point, I'm forgetting that. And if it was bad up to that point, you know, so this is really crucial. This determines if you're gonna, you know, go on to get referrals, to get, you know, more orders. So I look at this as one of the stages that are least looked at, but most important.
I say churn happens within the first 90 days after you sell something. That's when churn happens.
Yeah.
So churn meaning you're not gonna get a repeat customer out of that. Even if you have them sign a year contract, if implementation, I agree with you, if implementation doesn't go well, then don't expect to see them renew or buy more product in a certain period of time. So churn happens very early in the sales process.
Yeah.
And I would say, on that one, you have to manage expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I said.
Yes, yeah.
Can't
It's-
set
you're right, if it
expectations.
takes- It's, the delivery is this.
Right, if they're expecting, as a buyer, if I'm expecting delivery on this date, and as a seller, I know I can't do that, then I've got to tell them before that happens. Because this is so important.
Yeah.
That goes back to your question about prototype. So in the software world, it's a demo or a pilot, all right, or POC, a proof of concept. I'm happy to do, with Keith, I'm happy to do a trial, I'm happy to do a product demo, I'm happy to give a prototype. But what's the success criteria for you look like? So if I give you the prototype, what are you looking for? And if you see everything you're looking for, then we're good, right? Or if I give you 30 days to try my product, what's success, like, what are you looking for?
What's the measure of success?
What's the measure of success?
What's the
Because
criteria?
people give these free trials and prototypes and whatever all the time without holding people accountable to, you know, they're like, well, can I try it? People can say, sure. But try it for what purpose? Like, what are you looking for? Because I love to hear this at software sales. I just want to see if my team likes it. What? Really? No. So I'm happy to demo it for them. And then the minute you hand something over to them, you understand that they don't know how to use that you gave birth to, chances are that something will happen, right? So if they want to see a prototype, then I would make sure that that someone from your world is introducing them to that prototype. Just like I don't hand over my software to an unqualified, untrained user, because they're gonna come back and they're gonna be like, yeah, it doesn't really do everything we need it to do. Oh, really, what does it do? Well, we couldn't get it to do, well, it's not supposed to do that. It wasn't designed to do that. So you're asking it to do something it doesn't do, or you didn't know how to use it. So I think I'm happy to do that, I'm with Keith, under very strict
Yeah, you have to give
parameters,
guidelines.
because that's danger zone, that should have a skull and crossbones on it for me.
What happens with free is people don't value free. So they don't put time and effort into it, and then they don't use it, and they may not use it at all, they may not touch it. You could go in and install, implement for a trial period, and they don't touch it, and then at the end they ask their employees, what'd you think of it? And everybody goes, nah. Well, they never even used it. So now you've got kind of a bad
Taste in the mouth,
blemish,
yeah.
you know, on your
Yeah.
product, that's gonna carry in the market. So you have to manage those very, very carefully.
Okay, so.
Don't give your
I-
baby
I
to a
took-
stranger.
I took that question as, it wasn't high-tech. I took that question as it was a product that you make in your basement, or a product you make in a factory, and it's not high-tech. Our company is high-tech. We don't give anything away for free. We charge a setup fee of $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000, and then we give them 2 months to use it. So, high-tech, you're not giving away anything free. But
I'm the
you're-
same on the software side. Proof of concept, pay me.
Yeah.
You wanna try it for 3
But
months?
if it's
Pay
a
me.
product and you're testing it out, then that's fine, give it away for free.
What you're saying then is that you wouldn't build a prototype, or you would get some sort of a commitment ahead?
No, I build a prototype for that. Oh, wait, is
Not
this
sure I do it
specific?
for free though.
Is this specific for a company, one-off?
Pardon me?
Is this
It's
a
a one-off.
one-off specific for that company, or is this in your product line?
No, well, it's a custom-built product, so.
Oh, I wouldn't do that.
Not for free.
No.
Well, the thing is, if you don't show them a prototype, they wouldn't buy it.
That's fine, but
Yeah.
but if they want it bad enough, then there's
It's
cost
custom,
associated, there's a
yeah.
cost
Well, I
associated with
guess
that.
I guess it comes down to what's the cost of building it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so if your cost to build it is minimal, then yes, you build it and give it to them for free. But if your cost costs money, costs you, you know, money that's gonna hurt you, then you can't do that.
Yeah. You're at least looking for break even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you can build it if they'll commit to buy it.
Yeah, but
If it
But
works.
if they're not gonna, right, But
Yeah, but they're not gonna commit to buy it, is what he's saying, so maybe they commit to covering the cost.
If it works, he's saying, so they can get a contract.
Yeah, if it works, I'll build it. But you have, do you agree to buy it if it meets?
Well, yeah, that's what we were
There's so-
saying,
there's so
right,
many
so they
variables,
have to
right.
sign up to that criteria at the beginning,
There's so many variables in
Yeah.
that word works,
yeah,
you know, so
5
Like,
minutes,
yeah.
okay.
give me a definition for work.
Yeah, okay, so let's keep going here. I'm putting this slide up, it's got the sales process and the buying process side by side. They're not one-to-one matches, okay? But just, let's keep talking, I'm just putting this up here for context, to see if there's anything that you wanna go back to or ask questions about. We've got 5 minutes, we've got a hard stop because we have a 6:30 group coming in behind us. So, any other questions on the sales or buying process you'd like to ask?
I don't have a question, but I can offer something. We got an order from Southwestern Bell for 10,000 units, 20,000 units, and we thought we were in heaven, you know. And then we called us up about a month later and says, well, we'd like to delay that order. We only want 2,000 at a time, you know. So you got to be careful in sales to make sure that you're fulfilling the need that they want.
And managing
Jim?
your financials as far as
Right.
if it's a tangible manufactured product, your cost, and what does it cost you to build, how many units, and, yeah, so that's,
Yeah, obviously, there's not enough time to really get into this, but my experience with selling, B2B selling for a startup company is that you're often getting pulled by your potential customer into new market segments or
New feature
renovations
sets.
or tweaks to your product that your company may or may not want to follow up on.
Right.
And the whole issue of the salesperson being the advocate for the customer within the company becomes sometimes a difficult dynamic.
And I lived that. I just started this company, the high-tech company I was with. We spent the first year providing, building whatever the needs of the client was. And then the last 3 or 4 months, we become very focused for a product. And we're so much better off now. Because you're right.
Yeah, there's a lot, customizations can take a company down. I've seen it on all kinds of products and services. So just because you can build it, doesn't mean you should build it.
knowing
Right?
when to say no is really, really important.
That's correct. Yeah, I call it discipline. You have to have
Yes.
discipline.
But I
Here
think-
are some key takeaways, questions from what we talked about today that are important for you to be able to answer for your company and your business related to the sales and buying process. I want to thank a little Valentine's suite for our 2 panelists, and thank you all for being here this evening. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and thanks for joining us. We
Thank
hope
you.
you enjoyed the session. Tactile Innovators is announcing their newest cohort in this room right now.
Momentarily.
Yeah, so we need to